Hello guys, what is going on? Phoenix61 here with a Skull and Bones video. We haven't done one in quite some time, but yeah, hasn't been too much going on. There's been a lot of just normal, progression of the game and the changes that they've been making throughout Season 1. But alas, Season 2 approaches, and just yesterday they finally announced what is changing, what is going to get reset as far as your game progression and all of that other fun stuff and the helm and blah blah blah, right? So I am going to dig into that for you. They had a live stream yesterday that was like an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and it was a little long for what was discussed, right? So I'm literally going to show you the 2 minutes that we all care about, right? That's not to say like the live stream wasn't entertaining, right? So I'll put a link in the description to that stream, right? And if you want to watch it, you can watch it, right? Because they do go into some more detail than what I'm going to talk about, right? But I'm going to kind of go over what I felt was important, what most people are going to care about in way shorter of a time, and then I'll go over sort of my opinions on what to do until Season 2 drops, right? So like you can kind of prep yourself and get sort of the maximum head start for the season, right? So this is out on this, a new article on their website, right? So I'll put the link in the description for this, and then here is their their live stream video if you want to watch it, right? So if you're interested in reading through all of this, feel free to pause and read it, right? But I'm going to skip most of this is just stuff that they've done throughout Season 1, right? So here is Season 2. These are the this is what's going to be new, right? So ship upgrades, which allow you to upgrade your ships to improve ship stats. Fleet management, which will assign you ships to manufactories to automatically collect pieces of 8. So we'll dig into that a little bit more because they do show a tiny bit of that. Helm leases, which will allow you to acquire a manufacturer of your choice. I'll tell you about that as well and what that is and what that means and how to get that. New PvE and solo game modes, balancing for the cost of manufactories. Not too much going on there, right? I think it's things like might not cost as much silver, right? Like that kind of stuff. So seasonal reset. This is what we all were speculating and wanting to know what the heck was going on, right? Because it's like, all right, if you're a pieces of 8 collector, right, and you're running manufactories and collecting pieces of 8, once you progress through and get to like the diamond tier, there's not, and then bought everything that you want, there's not much reason to get pieces of 8 anymore right now, right? At least with the current way, right? So this kind of helps with what to think about Season 2, right? So here is the big screen, like this is the one that we all cared about, right? So, I mean, the big question is the one right in the middle, pieces of 8 reset. You will be able to keep 300,000 pieces of 8 if you have 300,000 pieces of 8. If you have more than that, you're going to lose whatever you have more, and it's going to drop you down to 300,000. If you have less than that, you're going to keep everything that you have, right? So the key is going to be, if you have more than 300,000, spend it. If you have less, you can earn more up to 300,000. It'll still let you get as much as you want right now, but once the season reset hits, it's going to drop you down to 300 grand, right? So you might want to collect as much, you might want to get up to that 300 grand so that when Season 2 hits, you've got that little bit of a head start, right? On the left side, territory reset. So if you don't know what territories are, I will show you in a little bit later in the video, but basically these are when you've done takeovers for the manufactories. If you get a group of them, then that's a territory, like each area has a territory, right? And you'll get one of these world helm lease things. And basically what that is you will be able to unlock a manufactory during Season 2, like right off the bat with one of those, right? So you won't have to do the hostile takeover. So basically it's giving you a head start, right? And then on the right is for each one that you've had upgraded or that you've unlocked, gives you a ship upgrade part, right? So you can scroll back if you want to look at that video, right? But that'll help you in upgrading your ships, right, later in the video, right? So yeah, so this is what we're going to go into right now. So this is the fleet management. So this is just a real short clip from the live stream that they did yesterday, right? So but they were very general with how this works, right? So but basically you can, whatever ships you're not using, you can assign them to factories and they will go and collect pieces of 8 for you. it appears there's going to be some balancing, like limits on like how much they can carry, stuff like that. But they didn't go into those details. You can see there's this where it says like low risk here, right? So they're going to have a recommendation for how strong your ship should be to be able to collect from those factories. And then if they're not very strong, they're going to be like damaged. You're going to have to repair them or something like that, right? So before they can go out again, something like that, right? And then this is upgrades. Again, the other like 2 minutes out of the live stream that a lot of us were excited about or interested in, right? So it looks like you'll be able to kind of further customize and upgrade your ships. Again, they didn't go into like crazy details, but it looks like they've got an upgrade selected here, and for this particular ship, it's gonna give them this ship more hull health, right? So then I'm gonna guess that what's gonna come along with that is it's gonna the ship level or whatever, like right now you can get up to level 12, right? So but based on whatever stuff you've equipped on your ship and then how much you've upgraded it, I'm gonna guess that makes it higher and higher in level, right? New weapons, they showed off a couple of new weapons. This one is, what is it? This is like a spring loader, right? So, but basically what it does is it drops like a mine or like an area effect kind of thing in the water. And this first one, you can see he's using like a heal one, right? So it's a new Ox weapon. And they do try to show some of the, I think the other ship has an offensive one, right? So that looks like it would be like, fire or explosive damage, right? But they didn't detail it out too much, but it definitely looks pretty usable, right? Like I'm kind of excited about that, right? So that is going to be interesting. I'm excited for that. And then the other one, so yeah, they're still just playing with it. I kept like a minute of it in here, right? So yeah, you can see an offensive one, and it looked like it didn't even work, right? So maybe they're still fixing it, right? We'll find out when we get to play with it, right? The other thing that they showed off is torpedoes, so right? So torpedoes was a video I did where I was like, meh, but these are homing torpedoes now, right? So you can see once it gets kind of close to the enemy, it actually turned towards it. Again, they didn't go into crazy detail on like how it works, so pretty much what you're seeing is what we all know, right? But basically, like once it gets close enough to an enemy, it will home. At least that's kind of how they described and showed it in the video, right? So now we'll talk a little bit more about that stuff and what I'm planning to do or what you might want to do in prep for coming up to this like season cutoff, right? So I think there's like a week and a half or 2 weeks left, right? And then they're not even, I don't even know if they announced exactly when season 2 starts, so there might be like a little bit of a gap in there where there's like no season going, right? But my thoughts here are, if you have more than 300,000 pieces of 8, go to the black market and buy materials, right? Especially these rare ones. So you can see, so I've already done this a bunch because I think I had like 600 grand. Right, so this worm's breath, like these top ones are rare materials, right? So if you're not using your pieces of 8 for anything else, buy some of this stuff. And then I've even been buying the like this other stuff too, like these other just generic resources, right? Just because it's like I know I'll be able to keep those, but I won't be able to keep the pieces of 8. So like then I'll probably never have to go material harvesting ever again because I've spent so much on materials, right? But and then the downside is too here when you buy a bunch, it maxes out your cargo. It goes into your cargo hold. So then you got to go, into manage cargo and transfer it over to your warehouse, right? So, but that's just so it's going to be a little bit redundant if you really want to max out your stuff, right? But otherwise, go in and I mean, obviously, like anything you don't have, buy it out. So these are the Dardanelles guns are for sovereigns, right? They did say that sovereigns are not getting reset. So your sovereigns, your silver and like all your materials, like everything else is going to carry over, right? So you may not care too much about the the cosmetic stuff. I just bought it just because I was drowning in pieces of 8, right? So if you're not up on the like how to get a lot of pieces of 8, go and check out my videos on earning pieces of 8 because we kind of simplified it, right? So at least I did the best I could, right? But go in here and buy what you want. I think the one thing that would maybe be a smart choices would be the I don't know, like the blueprints. There are blueprints later, but it's like if you don't like those weapons, then it's maybe not that big of a deal anyway. But like, yeah, like buy the pets like just to have them, I guess. If you've got that many pieces of bait, right? Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and I went in and bought everything, even though some of these I don't even use, right? So like a couple other things while I'm like scrolling through here and like looking at this stuff. So your silver doesn't reset. The map, they did confirm that the map is not getting bigger this season. And but they did kind of hint that that is going to happen. Black Prince, if you don't have Black Prince, that's a good one to get. But like I said, sovereigns aren't resetting, so yeah. But then it's like some of these like lower level halls. I'm like, this is like stupid to sell these. Like no one's spending their pieces of 8 on these like lower tier, right? Like right, like don't buy those. You don't need those. Yeah. So the map's not expanding. Large ships are not ready yet. But they did sort of hint that those are in the works and are coming. They're just working on figuring out how they play into effect, right? There is a new medium ship called the Brig. It is different than the Brigantine. And actually in the like weapon demo that I was showing earlier, one of them was using the Brig, right? So it looks like a hybrid, like a cross between like the Sandbook and the Barque here. Like it looked like it was kind of like a mix. So that'll be kind of an exciting thing to play around with, right? So and then yeah, homing torpedoes, spring launcher weapon. They did say there was probably about around 20 new weapons. Now they're not like all new, like completely new ideas, right? So they were talking about like for example culverins, like they'll have like different variants, like a fire variant, right? Like so there's going to be a lot of the same weapon types, but with different like elemental status effects and stuff like that. Animal skins is probably a good one to buy a bunch of, right? Because like those are kind of if you ever need those, right? They're kind of annoying to go get because you got to get in your Dow and go spear hunting, right? Which is like time consuming, right? So yeah, I like was just going in and I'm like, I got these 8s to spend. I'm gonna just buy stuff. I'm gonna buy materials because you're gonna want to build a bunch of ships to do your fleet management. You're going to want to literally build a fleet of ships. They did say they're increasing the amount of ships you can have, right? Like that kind of stuff. So for prepping for next season, so what to do in the meantime, right? I am running like a lot of helm materials, and I'm going to tell you why here as we go. But basically, you're going to lose all your helm upgrades, right? So as you're, so for producing product in the lab and the distillery like we're doing here, you're getting, if you maxed out your upgrades, you're getting things like, a lot of times you have an increased chance of when, an item is refined, you'll get 2 of the end products instead of just 1. Like, like stuff like that. And then speed as well, right? So kind of basically what my thought process is to use and abuse your helm upgrades that you have right now because they're all going to reset, right? So make as much product as you can, right? So this is what I'm talking about. So the upgrades here, the Smuggler's operation. So yeah, unlocks production of silver snuff from the refinery. So like you won't even be able to produce the high-end materials for the helm, end products for the helm until you go in here and buy these upgrades, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, go do some helm material harvesting and get them plugged in here, and get them going, so that way when you're, when season 2 approaches, you've got like a stash, right? And ultimately that's going to be for earning silver, right? But yeah, so these upgrades, you're losing them all, right? They're all getting reset and or possibly tweaked. Who knows? They didn't talk about that, but I would imagine they might do some changing, right? And Red Isle, Coast of Africa, these are all dependent on the manufacturers. You notice I don't have any of the East Indies factories claimed, so I didn't put any money in here because I was making plenty of pieces of 8 with just the 2 areas that I had. I didn't need the East Indies, right? So this is one thing that, like, there's those ship upgrade materials for how many factories you had claimed, right? So before season 2 starts, I need to go in there and actually just do the hostile takeovers or whatever to just get those. I don't have to put any money into them, right? I don't have to put any pieces of it. Don't upgrade them, nothing, because I don't need them, right? But that's just something that, like, if I want to maximize my, my intro into season 2, go in, make sure you've claimed all the factories, right? So, but yeah, go into the supply network every time you're signing in and pick the, do the ones you want. So like so there's 2 for Fort Dulise. So I'm like, all right, I can double up on this one, grab them both. Then you only have to go and do the plunder once, right? So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm going in here and, I do all the liaison ones, the roving supply and the supply deals, right? Go and do those however you please. You want my opinions on how to do those? There's a, watch my Pieces of 8 video. I'll put the link in the description for that, right? Okay, so other things that, if you've been watching my channel, some things that I've told you to do, this is kind of like, where to go from here, right? So the bounty board, this is something I think that is going to be, like the Anguish from the Abyss, that's the newish ghost ship, I believe, right? So, like, that's probably, some of these, they have timelines for them, right? So you may want to go in there and do it. The new, like, the newer-ish the harder sea monster was in here, too, and that seems to be one of those things that's going to come and go, right? And then the Blighted Bastion, so this one's definitely, I can't say definitely, but fairly certain this one's going to be gone, just because it's sort of the end mission for this season, right? It takes you need 6+ players to finish off the Blighted Bat, to finish off the basically hard mode La Peste, right? They did say that La Peste is going to stick around in some form or fashion, so I'm going to guess it's going to be sort of more like the world event kind of style thing, right? So you'll still be able to go and fight him and potentially get his rewards and stuff like that, right? But yes. So the other thing that I do is I did a lot of farming of the Fleet of Pestilence dudes. So what you do for that is you put the Fleet of Pestilence heads, when you kill those smaller ships, you get one of these Plaguebringer heads, and you need to carry 10 of them in your cargo hold, and then that increases your threat level with those ships. And then if you get it up to the max level, there's a chance that a more difficult one will spawn, and you can kill that and get the end boss rewards without actually having to fight the end boss, right? So I was saving those, right? So I don't really think I'm going to need those going forward. So you can go in and do this pest control mission and basically don't have to do it anymore because I have so many of those in my cargo, right? So if you were doing the same thing I was, where you were saving those heads for that specific reason, you can literally pick this mission up. I think it's a daily one. Pick it up and complete it because you already have the heads. You don't need to go out and do those, right? So if you're still working through the Smuggler's Pass too, that's a good way to help get you through the Smuggler's Pass, because I think that's one of the missions you can do to progress Smuggler's Pass stuff, right? So this would be the other thing. If you haven't completed this, this would be the other thing to work on. It's not, there's a, if you bought the season pass thing, there's some extra cosmetic rewards, but what you want to do is get some of these other rewards too. If you haven't, I'm gonna guess a lot of this stuff you're gonna somehow be able to get, one of them's the ship blueprint, right? So I'm gonna guess that there's gonna be some way down the line to get that. But yeah, there's these Carronades, if I'm saying that right, for the Gunner Master. So there's these 3 different tech trees, right? And I'm gonna tell you, this is what I would do if you haven't gotten through this very far yet, right? Shipmaster, I would go to get this. I would get up to 20 in Shipmaster to get the Wailing Ward. Thus far, that's the only way to get that armor piece, and it's a good one, and it's good for fighting La Peste. And then the Gunmaster, I don't really think there's anything special along the way, but you do get 2 free, well, not free, but at the end you get a pair of, you get 2 of these weapons, these Carronades, right? And they're kind of fun. I have a build with those. So yeah, if you're interested in that, go check out my other videos, right? The other thing I would do for sure probably is, you do you, right? But the on the quartermaster, get to 20. This is a furniture blueprint, right? So it's really great for fighting La Peste and Fleet of Pestilence ships because it highlights, you can actually see where their critical hit points are. But then you also do 10% damage more to critical hit points as well. And that's not just amongst La Peste fleets, right? So, but regardless, as long as you get to, I would say maybe at least get to 45 if you can. So basically you put 45 points in any of the three, right? And then that unlocks the Barque blueprint, right? The ship blueprint. So, but like I said, if you don't get there, like, nobody's said this for sure, but I'm gonna guess there's gonna be a way to get that ship later at some point, even if you miss it. But just play the game, right? Yeah. So if you're interested in, so these sort of, each of these divided out sections that kind of highlight as you move around the map, these are the territories, right? So we talked about that in the very beginning when they said, you know, if you have X number of territories claimed, you're going to get a certain number of helm leases. And I think the reason they call it a lease is because you only get it, you're going to get that manufactory for the season, right? You don't get it permanently. So I think that's why they did it, right? So, but there's territories in each section, right? Whatever, right? So what you want to do if you're like me and you left a bunch, you know, if you had a good system going for collecting pieces of 8, I did not need to, you know, go in and unlock or claim all of these factories in the East Indies. But now, so I think there are a total across the whole map, I think there's 70, right? And so if you have all 70, that's when you'll get the most upgrade materials. That was sort of the other thing that we showed on that, you know, that visual, whatever you want to call it, towards the beginning of the video, right? So that's what I would do, is go, you know, if you don't have 300,000 pieces of 8, you know, try and collect up to 300 grand, and then that'll kind of set you up for next season. If you've got more than 300,000 pieces of 8, spend them so that you get down close to 300,000 pieces of 8, right? And then if you haven't claimed all the factories yet, that's kind of where the other rewards lie. You don't need to upgrade them all, you just need to have claimed them, it looks like. So, yeah, I would go and claim said other, you know, claim the other manufacturers. So I may do a live stream coming up here, just of me, you know, going, because I gotta, you know, basically prepping for season 2, right? We'll do a season 2 prep live stream, so keep an eye out for that one of these nights. But basically I need to go and do a bunch of hostile takeovers, maybe collect some more pieces of 8, just because I still have factories running, and doing some helm materials, like that kind of, you know, all that fun stuff, right? So, and then, yeah, spending my pieces of 8 so that we get down to about 300 grand. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my video all the way through. That is basically my opinions on what was the important things for this go around. So that's all very exciting, right? Make sure you are following the channel. Like I said, we occasionally live stream. I know I do a lot of other games, like World of Warships Legends is what I'm really huge into right now. So we're doing videos every single day for that, right? So. But yes, stay tuned for more Skull and Bones videos as well, and we will catch you guys next time.